The EFL is back then this weekend. The Championship returns, and there's a new Brazilian winger in town, and he's at Swansea. And here to discuss it all, here are James and Richard, back from the Swansea View. How are you both?
Very good, thanks, Mark.
Yeah, good, thanks, Mark.
All right, James, we'll talk about Ronald in a minute. Let's first of all discuss the Bournemouth game briefly. I watched it.
Do we have to?
Tuesday night.
We have to go through it again.
I'm obviously very neutral on this channel. I don't often call out teams, but I've got to say, by God, you were garbage. Was there anything that you learned from that game, Richard, about your team that you didn't know before?
Well, we've got to change our approach to games, I think. You can't be naive as we were against Southampton, as we were against Bournemouth, and we're facing Leicester tomorrow night. And, you just got to learn to be a little bit more tactically astute against teams which play a passing game, which we want to be a passing team, but we just have to be that little bit more, kind of have a different sort of approach to games against the better sides, I feel.
Very pragmatic response there, James. James, you to be as kind.
I thought it was a pathetic show, and there was a few players that really should be absolutely lambasted for it. Some didn't look interested out there. I mean, they are a bogey side of ours, and I hope we never have to play that tiny little club ever again. I can't stand them. We haven't beaten them for 12 games, but there was no excuse. There were some senior pros in there who were absolutely awful, if you ask me. And I think as much as it shows that we perhaps need to be a bit smarter going into these games with teams that play that way, there's a few people in that squad who really need to take a good long look at themselves. I'm not going to name drop them. I'm not for throwing individual players under the bus, but it just simply wasn't good enough.
Should we move on then from that game?
Yeah,
and never talk about it again.
Yeah,
didn't happen.
Okay,
Cup didn't happen this year.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the new signing then. What do we know then about Ronald? 22, Brazilian winger. Is it? It's going to be over $1 million at least, Richard. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's a 7-figure fee, so it's going to be an interesting one because he'll give us natural pace, dynamic player, power. It's something we've lacked really since Josh Chanelli got injured in late September. So we're crying out for natural creativity really in the final third, such players playing out of position, being forced really into sort of formation changes. So we've been playing three at the back, utilising wing backs, gives us that dynamic now to play as a four going forward, four at the back, and then having wingers going into the box that way. So it'll just add that couple of dimensions better for the Swans, and make us less predictable perhaps as well, I would think.
Okay. James, with that news, I'm sure Swans were delighted, but how disappointed was to hear that Yannick Bolasie is not going to be carrying on his running down the wing at Swansea.com stadium.
I'll miss the chant, but let's be really truthful. In the 11 appearances he had for us, he didn't really do much. And I don't know whether that's because he hadn't been playing for a while, but for me, I think it does make sense that we're not having him to the end of the season. I think there are far better options that we could target out there. We talk about needing pace and power. I think those days are, again, no disrespect behind him. He's a winger that is 34 years old, so I don't think keeping him longer would have saved us much purpose. I think not having him here gives us the ability to go maybe target someone of a younger demographic. So I can't really say I'm that overly disappointed. But again, it does. We have this issue with depth at the moment. So again, it is, making the squad, thinner again, really.
Okay. And then, unsurprisingly, your leading goal scorer to both of you is in the headlines, daily headlines, coming up as clubs are going to put a bid in, and he might be off. Can you see Yates in a Blackburn shirt or a Hull shirt in a week's time, Richard?
Right. As far as I know so far, after today, after the manager's given his press conference as such, he says, really, we've got money there, so it's not a money issue. There's money to buy the right player to come in. So the Yates thing is more about playing time, I feel. That's the kind of message that's coming across. But at the same time, what has been talked about it's unacceptable if it happens. Is if he goes out on loan, we paid £2.5 million for a striker. He is, like you say, our leading goal scorer. You're gonna, with creativity, you put a winger out, you might have the service to get a few more. You don't get players like that very often in the league, and perhaps you could argue that the style of play we use hadn't suited him to this far. Maybe he's missed a couple of chances, but anything with strikers, you get a couple, you go on a run. I think it'd be a terrible decision if they let him go.
And James, with Jamal Lowe out for a couple of weeks, is it? That leaves Yates and Liam Cullen as the only options going forward.
Yeah, that only leaves us with those two. And again, if for me, as Yates going, it's not great timing. Maybe things haven't been great yet for him. I maybe like to see us persevere, like Richard said, with him. See if we give a bit more service. See if he will come good in the end. But again, if we send him out on loan after paying £2.5 million for him in the summer, that is a terrible bit of business. However, I would like to see Cullen play through the middle a little bit more. I've been saying it a while now. We've been shoving him out on the left. I've always said if you put Liam Cullen in and around the box, he's going to score your goals. So maybe it's a chance for Cullen to step up now.
I would like to add as well, if someone like Morgan Whittaker, you watch scoring goals for Plymouth, if he had been given a chance in the middle, perhaps he might have had more goals as well. So it is one of those scenarios, isn't it? You've seen Cullen, Whittaker, do we just need to go for these younger players and just give them a shot at that?
Yeah. People have said a lot about Ronald coming in. They're talking about his output and his stats, but Joel Perreault was the same. His output did not look great when we bought him, but what came after, we unearthed a gem. So people are reading so much at the stats at the moment with with Ronald coming in. Again, we could unearth another gem. If you looked at his stats at PSV, I think he'd scored like 3 goals. So hopefully, like I said, if we can look at that demographic again, we might get a few people who will surprise a couple. Again, I just think going for the stereotypical, like Jerry, someone who's done it over here consistently, it doesn't always translate from one club to another. He was fantastic for Blackpool, but I don't think it's quite here for him either.
Okay. All right, let's bring in our Plymouth fan then, and let's look ahead to the game this weekend. Good evening, Jaden, for Plymouth. How are you?
Good, Mark. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. We'll talk about Morgan Whittaker in a second. When Swansea visited Home Park, they were one of the few teams, and I mean the few teams, to leave Home Park with all 3 points earlier on in the season. What did you make of Swansea back then, because you were there for that game?
Yeah, they were quite good, I thought. Obviously, it was quite a long time ago now, but I think it was a bit of a blip on the road for Plymouth Argyle. But yeah, it was tough. It was sort of a tough game to watch because we're not really used to that in the last couple of seasons at home.
Yeah.
So, I'm not really sure what happened. Obviously, they got a late goal as well, which played a factor in the scoreline. They probably didn't deserve that big a scoreline, 3-1. But yeah, it was just a little blip in the road.
Okay, so the Green Army and Morgan Whittaker return to Swansea then this weekend. Jaden, this is a different Plymouth side and a very different Swansea side to those two teams that played in October. You're unbeaten with your new manager as well. Tell the Swansea lads here what sort of Plymouth side they can expect to turn up this weekend.
Yeah, we've had a lot of new signings. Obviously, in the reverse fixture, I think we have Ben Waine playing and starting. So it's going to be very different this time. We're going to have a lot more attacking ability. And we've got some more technical players in the middle now with Devine and Forshaw signing and JB as well. He was really good. They're all going to be fresh as well. They're all going to be very fit because they were all cup tied for the game at the weekend. So yeah, we should look good on Saturday.
Okay. Then Richard, what do you make of Plymouth and this season they're having? Yeah,
well, it's an interesting one when you get new promoted sides come into the league, and it's always a tough challenge when you're coming up that kind of level. But they more than looked their part in the league this season, and they're going to be a tough challenge by no means on the weekend. We've played some of the teams right at the top, and no offense to Plymouth or anybody else around them in the league at the moment, but they are different quality, the top four. But it's an even playing field, I think, between the rest of the teams in the league. And I think it's he who turns up on that afternoon, once at most, generally gets that win. And the home games are so important now from now to the end of the season to pick up points. And I feel for Plymouth, it'll be a game they'll probably target, looking at Swans not in particularly great form at the moment.
James, should Morgan start or play? Is he not injured at the moment, Jaden, is he?
No, he's not injured, no.
No. So should he start? What sort of reception do you think he'll get, James?
It's hard to say because I don't think we saw enough of him down here. I mean, like I said, we saw him in the Stoke game where he scored the goal for us. Again, I don't think he really built up that much of a connection. I think he's a bit of a what-if player. Should he start? From a Plymouth perspective, yes, because Swansea are one of the worst teams for having ex-players score against them. So if he's going to do it somewhere, it's definitely going to be down here because our ex-players just absolutely love to bag 1 or 2 against us. Although I will say in the reverse fixture down there, he got absolutely pocketed by Bashir Humphreys. But I don't know, I just can't see that happening again.
Jaden, how's Morgan been doing in recent games?
Oh, he's been fantastic. As always, he scores every game. You just can't doubt him. He just delivers every game. It's ridiculous.
Okay. Let's get some score predictions then, shall we? I can't call this one. Tough. 2 new managers going up against each other. 2 good footballing sides. Some recent viewing anyway, minus the Bournemouth game. Richard, you go with you first. Swansea Plymouth.
I think it's the game we have to target to get the 3 points from. So I think all the focus is going to be on that. And I think we're going to win 2-0.
Okay. James, this Plymouth manager's not been beaten yet. So what are you going with it?
I think for me, again, like Richard's saying, we have to be stronger at home. And it's a game that we ideally should be looking to get something out of. I don't think it'll be plain sailing. I can see Morgan scoring against us down there. And I'm going to go 2-1 Swansea.
Okay, nice one. And Jaden, we'll let you have the last say on this one.
Well, both our away games under Ian Foster so far have been 1-1, so I'm going to go 1-1 for this one as well.
Okay, nice one, fellas. Will our Brazilian superstar be on show? Is he fit enough, do we know, or is he likely to be on the bench and come on later?
Well, I don't think he'll be involved at Leicester, so I think he's going to be... He's played 18, 19 games this season, and he's going to be ready to take on the Pilgrims and take them down on Saturday afternoon.
All right. Will Swansea do the double over Plymouth? Put your comments below. And if you're a Swansea fan and haven't yet subscribed, please do so. And you can follow James and Richard both on Twitter as well. Thank you both for joining us and enjoy the game, all of you. Cheers.
Cheers, Mark.
Cheers, Mark.
Thank you.